Okay, so a year and a half ago, I made this video about the dinosaurs that I want most to appear in Jurassic World Dominion, and I talked about the little carnivores Compsognathus being on the mainland and having the capability of creeping into homes. I compared them to an airborne virus that would make people want to have their doors and windows closed at all times. So now we have this movie about the virus that eventually came, and it has Peter Stormare, who played Dieter Stark, a guy who gets killed by Compsognathus. I feel like I should be a writer for The Simpsons. Songbird takes place in April 2024 when COVID-19 is mutated into COVID-23, a far more lethal virus with a fatality rate of 56%, so all citizens are subjected to permanent lockdown, and those that contract the virus are forced from their homes and into quarantine camps. Just what we all need, right? The focus is on several characters, including an LA delivery bicyclist played by KJ Apa, who has rare immunity to the virus and thus is allowed to roam free. He has a girlfriend played by Sophia Carson, whom he met online but has never had direct contact with. But when several residents in her apartment building, including her grandmother, get the virus, he's on a race to rescue her before she gets taken away to a quarantine camp. So this movie's been slammed ever since the trailer dropped for all the reasons that came to your mind just hearing the premise, and I can say that, yeah, you really don't have to see it. It may only serve to scare you, and not in the way that you want a thriller or horror movie to scare you. Now, I didn't find the movie to be all bad. One thing that I liked about it is that it has a big cast of characters. It works in projecting the movie's enormous scale and stakes, as well as in creating a story about different people coming together to overcome such extreme circumstances. So in that sense, it does seem that the movie is trying to be somewhat hopeful for right now, and there were a few good moments with some of the secondary characters, like a handicapped veteran played by Paul Walter Hauser, and a cover song vlogger played by The Eyes, Alexandra Daddario. Also, Peter Stormare plays the lead antagonist, the head of the local sanitation department, and he has fun with his scenery-chewing intimidation. Craig Robinson, Demi Moore, and Bradley Whitford are also among the solid cast, and everyone does a good job. The problem is, the movie hasn't the room for so many characters, nor the room needed to allow us to absorb the high stakes, because it runs for a strangely brief 85 minutes. Yeah, well, most of the time these days we're criticizing movies for being too long. Songbird is way too short. And in that short time, we get some very poor dialogue. One particular instance being where the lead character says to his girlfriend, "Trust me," at a very wrong time, when she's just seconds away from finding out that he's already resolved the situation. We also get pretty underdeveloped world building with missing information. The movie opens with a gigantic exposition dump from the news and YouTube videos, part of which mentions rumors of very harsh conditions in these quarantine camps, referred to as Q zones. The audience is never actually taken inside one of these Q zones, but why is our knowledge, as well as the people in the movie's knowledge of them, limited to just rumors? What becomes of the 44% of the infected who recover? And for the citizens who are under permanent lockdown, how did they get their food, sanitizer, and other supplies? There are the delivery people, like the lead protagonist, but only 0.1% of people in this world have the immunity needed for the job. Doesn't seem like nearly enough deliverers to service everyone. It also doesn't make sense that Los Angeles looks borderline apocalyptic. I can understand cities looking like ghost towns from the outside, but what's up with the cracks in the road? Why is there a quarter of a Ferris wheel gone? These lingering questions, the insufficient runtime, and the poor dialogue are all the symptoms of a script that had only 4 weeks spent working on it. Now, during the pandemic that we're currently facing, there seem to be two types of people. Those who are afraid that it will get worse and the death toll will be exponentially greater, and those who are afraid of more government control. This movie exploits both those widespread fears. This might not have been such a bad thing if it had addressed some of the debates that have arisen from our situation, like should the government have more say in our personal lives, even if things were to get as unspeakable as what the movie depicts? If so, should there be any limits? And if not, would a rebellion be necessary? And Songbird rarely ever touches on any of that. I guess I can respect the effort it must have taken to shoot this movie entirely during the pandemic, but I feel like it would have been more welcomed by audiences if they had waited to release it until after this is all over. Heck, this would have been great to see in theaters, for us strangers to be coming together again and having some relieved laughter thinking, thank God that never happened. But as is, being an on-demand release while the pandemic still persists, it really suffers from bad timing. To get into a few more details, the movie looks good overall. The music, however, despite a fairly haunting end credits song by Royale, is inconsistent, sometimes having an electronic sound, while other times it has that dramatic female vocalizing, akin to what you hear in movies like District 9 and The Prince of Egypt. With its variety of characters who all play a part in fighting to overcome these oppressive circumstances, it does seem at times that the movie's heart is in the right place, but the rather straightforward plot and B-movie vibe brought about by the fast-paced editing style of producer Michael Bay make it come off more often as just an exploitation film. The whole thing makes me think of one of those direct-to-video movies you see on shelves that you can tell from the cover is capitalizing on a current event or idea, except this has a budget. It honestly didn't offend me that much, I'm just thoroughly indifferent to it. And I think that might be the most impressive thing about it, the fact that it centers around this current global event that is affecting everyone, and yet left me so cold. On the Factor Facts, Songbird has a viability rate of 41%. On the subject, I want to mention that my mom has just tested positive for the virus. She's a bit sicker than she was earlier this week, so I want to ask for your prayers that the good Lord will help her make a full recovery. And the vaccines are now being distributed, so we just might be in the final stretch of this thing, guys. Keep hanging in there, we're getting through this. That's a wrap, thank you for watching, I hope you found this review helpful. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop.